What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Not just any episode of the Bloody Water Podcast, but it's a conclusion episode. It's the end of the 2024 UFC calendar, but the fun does not stop there. If you've been following us for the last 12 months, or really, I should say, for the last 4 years, because we've been doing this since 2020, you know there's something special up for grabs here today. There's some golden belts here behind me. AJ, you could see it in the glimpse in the corner right there, but my man has a golden belt right there as well. We've been fighting all year to be able to garner the best picks possible, not only to fill your pocketbook and our pocketbook, but we had a little bit of pride on the line too. Before we jump into all of that, because you know that's what the game plan is here today, let's actually recap the last event that we had, UFC Tampa. There's some things to talk about here today, and I guess I should ask you, brother, how you living? How you feeling? You ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Derek. I'm feeling good. I'm living good up here. It's almost the time for the end of the year, so you know the joy, the glee's in the air, brother. I am excited to be riding this seat, though, with you.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let me run it. I'm going to bring it up on the screen, as you know that we do. Big name, big news, Joaquin Buckley, brother. He got it done over Colby Covington, and it was in definitive fashion, bro. It was in incredibly definitive fashion. Now, before we go ahead and assess a couple of the bouts, jump into all of that good stuff before we crown our winner today, let's go ahead and let's just take a quick look at UFC Tampa at the bet sheet and just kind of see what is on the docket. All right, brother. New look, new format, but we have some things to atone to. And AJ, I want you to take the floor first because I know at the end of the year, right, given how close this competition was, mathematically there was one situation, but the reality is you got to take some shots. If you don't take a shot, you're going to miss every single time. Tell me if I'm wrong. You said, hey, listen, we're just going to throw something against the wall, see if it sticks. I'm just going opposite picks across the board. What was your assessment for UFC Tampa?
You're fairly close, Derek. The thought did cross my mind, and in fact, if that was the case, I would have not chose Navajo Sterling, but nah, brother. I genuinely thought there was a lot of those fights that could have gone the other way, especially the Daniel Marcos, Adrian Yanez fight. I mean, it's hard to look at Cop, bro. That dude looked like an absolute killer. Billy Q let me down, hard one again. I will say the closest one that I was just throwing out there was the Joaquin Buckley versus Colby Covington. But Derek, I mean, this was a hell of a fight card regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the consensus picks, we only had 2 of them, and the one that I thought was a surefire lock is the dude who got stiffed, Vitor Petrino, back-to-back finish losses. So not particularly looking good there, but let's just take a look at what we have here, right? Joaquin Buckley, knockout finish, Cub Swanson gets the knockout, Manel Cobb gets the knockout, and then, Vitor Petrino gets knocked out. Daniel Marcos with the big win, Navajo Sterling with the big win right there. The picks were fairly chalky. That's what I will say, man. If you went chalk, you pretty much won the night except for the fight against Vitor Petrino right there. And who was our winner right there? Why am I blanking on the dude who Dustin Jacoby?
Dustin Jacoby, the Hanya brother.
Came back from the dead and got it done. So it's a beautiful look right here. But I guess the other thing that we need to focus on is going to be the prop locks, of course. We gave the people the props, and I want to talk about yours first, man. Otman Azater versus Michael Johnson. I see it, bro, because my pick was Michael Johnson. This was a bonus play. You were gone, so I had to be the arbiter of truth to hold us down. I failed miserably. I said Michael Johnson by decision was the bonus play. That was the official lock right there, and we all missed right there. Any explanation for that one?
30 seconds, Derek. 30 seconds away from locking this one up. But at this point, with how Michael Johnson and his career has been, I'm happy to see it. This was one of those knockouts where it's an old school vet getting one back, man. I love to see it, even though it hurt the pocketbook a little bit.
That's right. You got to love a true OG. He said it. He said, my name is Michael Johnson, and I am the UFC. I've been fighting way before all of these dudes. I fought all the biggest names. It was a beautiful thing to see. I'm really happy that we got ours. Grant Tavares versus, Davy Grant versus Ramon Tavares right there. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 135. A little chalky still, but I like the value play. If you take a look, right, AJ, we didn't hit 50% mark right here. I hit the 50% plus mark right there, but I'm not mad at it because this is something that's new. And folks, we have to really double down on this. Picking a fight in general is difficult. Picking the exact method of victory or a round over or under is incredibly more difficult, like exponentially, unfathomably different. So for the first year of us actually recording this, because remember, AJ, you tell the people, what's different about our program than all of the other masses that are giving out their picks all day? What's the main difference?
Accountability right here, folks.
That's it. We actually put down our records. We show you, good or bad, this is what the number is. So we're going to talk about a bunch of recap stuff here in just a few moments. We're going to talk about what some goals and projections are for next year and all that good stuff. But let's take a quick reflection back on another page that we need to go ahead and look at, which, like I said, is the fights just in general, man, because there were some more things that stood out to us than just the main card. We'll come back to the props and all that good stuff in a moment, man. This guy right here, Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose. Brother, come on. What are we talking about right here? This is my question to you, ultimately, AJ. Did we write off this man too early? I'm genuinely curious. Did we write him off too early?
Joel Alvarez? I wouldn't say we wrote him off completely, but I do think a lot of us, me included, were sleeping on Joel Alvarez. I mean, the props don't really indicate it, right? Minus 550, everybody's expecting him to do that. But I know on other opponents, that wasn't the case. So there's a lot of people just not really paying attention to Joel Alvarez. It's because of the last couple of fights he had.
And yeah, I guess maybe it's for me. I saw that knockout loss versus Arman Tsarukyan where I was like, are you the real deal? Are you really the real deal? Because losing to that guy, look, he's about to fight for the title. Tsarukyan is as legit as they get. Comes in, finishes everybody else. But Mark Chikasi, Elvis Brenner, fantastic victory right there. And then, of course, Drakkar Klose, where I thought it was going to be a little bit more competitive, but the man got him out there. And with the sickest guillotine, punch you in the face at the same time, bully backyard approach right there in the schoolyard. It was a beautiful thing to see. I will admit right there, AJ. How about this one? Sean Woodson, Fernando Padilla, talk to the people. What'd you think?
Woo, this is the fight we're looking for anytime we see Sean Woodson, right? He even knew, he said it. I know Fernando Padilla is going to go in there and try to walk me down, beat me up. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to stand toe-to-toe and put some work on this man. And sure enough, folks, round one knockout right before the bell. Gotta love it.
Look at all these decisions in the draw, right? In the Saldana fight, I think that was the fight, if I'm not mistaken, that he got knocked out and Saldana walked away and he got back up and was able to salvage a draw. But all these decisions, then you fight the dude who's an absolute firefighter in Fernando Padilla and you got the job done. I liked Woodson for the frame. I liked him for the technical ability to be able to keep Fernando Padilla at bay, but something looked a little bit off about him too, man. Did you have any thoughts on that?
No, he did. I don't know if it was like a weight cut or what it was, but we didn't see the normal ferocity that Fernando Padilla produces. Like, he was tagging Woodson, and Sean Woodson was standing in there ready to go, where we don't usually see that a lot out of the Padilla side.
I agree, man. Fantastic victory across the board. Only closed as a minus 160 favorite right there. So if you were in the Sean Woodson camp, which, folks, I was telling you guys this past week, jump on Sean Woodson. You got the job done. One more quick one to talk about here, and this is actually this fight right here. Josephine Knutson versus Piera La Fiera Rodriguez. AJ, I've been harping on Piera Rodriguez for a while. I thought that there's been some major value plays, but given the fact that she lost, I believe it was her last couple of fights. Let's see. Yeah, against Carnelosi and Jillian Robertson, man. I mean, she got written off big time right here. I did not expect as decisive a decision victory as she had against Knutson, but you also have to remember, man, Knutson's like a Muay Thai fighter, right? Some grappling, had a little bit of training there with Hamzat Shemaev, I believe, but the reality is, man, Rodriguez, when she gets to her bread and butter, she's one of the best to do it, man. Up there with Jillian Robertson, clearly didn't pass that test, but you know what I mean.
And her skills continue to keep growing, Derek. That's the thing. That's why I really like this fight, Piera Rodriguez. And as well as Josephine Knutson deserves a lot of respect in her own right, standing in there doing her thing. Lost the O, but still a very, very good for Rodriguez out of this one.
That's a big one. That's a big one right there. So we'll stop with the sharing for the time being right now, man. And like I said, there's a couple of things that we need to reflect on. First, UFC Tampa as a whole. That was our final bout. What does the UFC look like moving forward, man? We've been doing this for a while now, right? You went from being, we went from being casual fans that would like to talk about this to being a hardcore to being dudes who are sitting here in and out breaking down tape every single week for the past 4 years, right? So my question to you realistically, because I'm not going to lie to you, I'm going to be straight up. I think that I've fallen out of love with the product a little bit. And this is what I mean by that. I just think that the UFC has gone a little more commercial. And when you develop yourself as a legitimate league, it's kind of like the NBA, right? How they've evolved. Not everybody is a fan of the game as much. NFL, a little softer, right? The UFC, you're consistently seeing filler fights, right? Because you're being paid by ESPN to put on a number of events as opposed to a quality of bouts. For a long stretch this year, man, you didn't see a lot of knockouts, a lot of finishes. You saw a lot of really technical decision fights, which are awesome. You love to see a technical fight. But when every fight is more or less in the apex, more or less, right? And you're fighting in a warehouse and it's stale and you have 13 fights with like 10 decisions, you know, it makes you start to wonder, like, what do we need to do to spice it up? Because we love fights. We're degenerate fight fans. Even if you fall out of love with the sport, you're a degenerate fight fan. I love to watch people get punched in the face. But the question is, where does UFC go, man? Without any competition, is this just what it is? You just take what you can get? Because there's nobody else who is a close number 2 right now.
No, I could definitely see where you're coming from, Derick, and I can see where not animosity or not lack of interest, but I can see what you're talking about. And I do think the one way the UFC, and they're on the right path, they've already started to implement some new rules that are changing the terms of getting back to more violence, right? I mean, they switched out the gloves. Who knows if it's actually going down, right? The hands on the ground is no longer a thing. 12 to 6 elbow. There's a lot of things that the UFC are implementing that are kind of getting back to the roots. But I feel you. There's been a lot of media attention, which kind of draws more eyes, but sometimes it's the wrong eyes because not a lot of people are into this violence like we are, the degenerates are, you know? But I do think one thing that could really, really change it and get us back to what we're used to seeing is getting out of the apex as much, man. Traveling, hitting the cities, going on tour like they used to do back in the day, even hitting other countries. I think that's going to bring even more eyes and the right kind of eyes to the UFC again.
I'll say not just that, right? Definitely, let's get out of the apex and let's start moving around, even though they've already said openly, like, that's not going to happen, dude. Like, it's just dollars and cents. It makes more sense to have fights in the apex, which is like right on a business model, protect it. But when you're in these other towns, man, these cities need to wake up too, bro. I'll tell you, because there's a couple of the events that you've seen all across the world where you're like, man, y'all are a quiet bunch, huh? Not a lot of energy. You got to give the fighters energy too. But the most important thing, man, is we need to get away from the boxing methodology that I've seen a little bit, where some dudes just don't want to fight the best guys. You got to go out there, you got to risk it. And seeing Ian Machado Gary and Shavkat Rakhmonov, I thought was a great example. I went to UFC 311. I was live and in the flesh, and I want to know your perspective watching it on the couch, bro. It's kind of a boring fight. What do you think?
They're kind of a boring event as well. Like everybody was super excited, right, for the co-main event, because everybody that's the people's fight, and a little bit of a snoozer. I mean, and in fact, the people I was watching it with, a lot of them started pulling up the phones, right? It started going down. Where I'm locked in, I'm watching, because again, that's what we do. But still, seeing the vibe of the crowd, not necessarily the one in the the building, but in the one in my building, it's rough to watch, man.
Yeah, bro. It was a long event, and I want to get my money's worth, so I was there from the first fight all the way through the main event. And yeah, man, there was some of that looking around a little bit like, what's going on here, man? So something to think about. I'm interested to see what the 2025 docket is going to look like, but they did say they want to go to places they haven't been in a while since pre-COVID. And who would have thought, man, not to get political about it, but COVID had such a lasting effect that I don't think any of us really saw, that, yeah, the UFC is barely now like, all right, we can finally go back to some of these places. UFC Seattle is one of the dockets. I'm sure that they're going to travel to a bunch of other different places on the East Coast too. So something to think about, man. But I'm hoping that we see some bangers. That's all that I care about. All right, AJ, we've done enough of the mincing of the words, brother. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the head-to-head championship. Folks, again, I told you in the beginning of the show that I was going to circle back to this. There has to be a victor crowned. This is the official docket right here, 2024 head-to-head tournament. Don't clap yet, because what we need to do is we need to assess these numbers, and then I got another belt to put on, brother, but this is really what it is. All right, money line. 64% was the finish for me, 59% was the finish for you, which is why I was saying last card of the year. I'm thinking, all right, AJ's preserving the record. He's going to go chalk. He's just going to give all of that. That's why I said he just threw Hail Marys out there. But we did drop down to 59%. Before we move on, AJ, accountability hour once again. We both fell well short of our desired projection. The projection was, what was it, AJ? You know what it was.
70%, brother.
70%. I wanted to, and I came up short for you guys as well. So no, if you do us this one solid right here as you are watching this, subscribe, comment, engage, even if you're just saying what's going on, happy Christmas, whatever the case may be, do that. And we have one vow that we have to make from an ego perspective and from just a purely business perspective. I vow that I'm hitting 70% this upcoming year. If AJ wants a belt, you better hit 71%, brother, because I'm coming for that 70 mark. What is your vow to the people, AJ?
Absolutely, Derek. I'm all about lofty ambitions, brother. I'm thinking 75. I got some making up to do for this season, for some bad picks, some bad placements going forward. A little bit of bad luck from the judges, I will say. But either way, man, I'm shooting for that 75% right there, brother.
Prop score, we already touched on it. 21 and 16 for me, 57% across the board. 16 and 20 for you, 44% across the board. The biggest, I would say, discrepancy is the perfect weeks. If I recall correctly, last year you had many perfect weeks across the board. They were harder to come by. Think about it. I think there was like 44 events this year. I had 4 perfect weeks. You had 1 perfect week. So with that being said, again, we got some work to do. On the other side of things, these are the basic stats. 7 draws for us where we just tied across the board. I think that was actually pretty low in comparison to past years. Longest win streak for me was 5. Longest lose streak was 3. Vice versa for you. And AJ, I told you the day would come. But we got another one, brother. We got another one. Hey, folks, listen. We hoist that on there. The prophecy, people, has been fulfilled. I told you guys Triple D was going to be coming around, and we're here to stay. Now, the question is ultimately going to become this, AJ, because you know we both have competitive fire and competitive spirit. Will you allow me to be quadruple D next year? Am I having racking up 4 belts? Am I going to have so many belts here, AJ, that we're going to have to switch the trophy system into a ring or into something smaller because I don't got enough room for all of this hardware in the crib, brother? You tell me, but I know. I can see the look. You see the look on his face, folks? That's a look of a man who's coming for vengeance this next year. So I'm a little scared already. But, AJ, you know I just got to rock the belt for the remainder of this program. And we got a couple of questions that we want to go ahead and ask. But let's do just a little bit more reflection on our year this year as opposed to last. So my big question for you right here is conservative rating for you, my friend. How conservative did you feel this year? We always talk about every year we kind of have a little bit of an ethos to how we go about our picks. We're risky. We're just throwing them out there. Maybe midway, we're like, all right, I got to get back on track. So let me just kind of reel it back a little bit. How many of those vibe shifts did you have? And what influenced the picks right here? Because at the end of the day, what it should be true is just who is going to win. I don't care what the final score is going to be. What do you think?
There was definitely, I think, one of the big momentum shifts or ethos shifts that happened for me, Derek. I believe there was a moment, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago, where I was down about 12 picks, brother. Deep about 12 picks sitting there. And folks, if you're watching how this whole thing unfolded, I got pretty damn close, besides this last card, to getting Derick, right? It's making him sweat over there. I knew. Every time I bring up those numbers, right, I'm getting into 5, I'm getting into 4, I'm getting right there. I can tell my boys sweating because this is something we take a lot of pride in. So that right there, that big shift for me, it was getting back to the roots of seeing, like, okay, how do I perceive this fight or this fighter versus this fighter, right? Like which of these styles is going to outmatch the other one, and who's going to be that dog on that day? And then going back to that, Drew was able to bring me out of that deficit and a lot closer than what I thought it was going to be looking.
Would you say the hardest part of being an analyst for a fight, just breaking it down and trying to be objective, what would you say the hardest part was this year?
Man, hardest part I think would definitely be having to find the most likely outcomes in which styles were going to be fought, right? Like we're expecting this fighter to go in with just pure rage, pure aggression, or dominance, or whatever you want to call it, pressure. And then sure enough, that's not the case, right? Like something happens where they're just off that night, right? Take it, who were we talking about before? Fernando Padilla, right? We expected Fernando Padilla to go in there, really dominate, put the pressure on. And as much as he was putting that pressure, it wasn't the same kind of pressure we were seeing, right? Or another one comes to mind, man, Yuri Prochazka. You expect him to go in and learn a lot from his last fights or have a lot of the same style, and he doesn't show up like the man we normally used to seeing fighting. So that's one of the biggest and hardest things to prospect, or at least think of forwardly going for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And if I had to answer that question the same time, I think I have the same problem that I had 4 years ago. AJ, it's hard fighting media bias, narrative building. It's really, really hard to fight it because you know a fighter's record, you know a fighter's skill set, you could watch their tape and you could see what the product is. But all you see on UFC Embedded and on all the YouTube channels and all over Twitter and what people are saying, because people get so passionate about the people that they root for, you know, it becomes, nah, this dude's a fucking bum, this guy's gonna smash him, knockout in one, you guys are crazy, and they have so much conviction when they say it, it makes me sometimes take a step back, even when some of my buddies are talking about it, and I'm just like, I know y'all don't know what the hell you're talking about, but still, I'm a little concerned. So I would say, like, that's one of the hardest parts for me still to this day, of just kind of being able to hold your pick firm, believe what you believe based on the research that you have done because you've actually put in the work, and then just bank on it even when it sounds crazy, even when, so it's like that meme that you might see sometimes where it's all like, a bunch of people crowd around one guy and they're like, oh, so you think we're all wrong? And you're like, yeah, you are. I am right. I'm the only one. And yes, I am correct. You guys are all sheep, right? Like that's the mentality that you got to have. For an example, I would say, I was going to bring up the Pantoja Asakura fight where it was like that should have been, and the odds indicated it though, so it wasn't as bad. It's just a bad example. But like everybody should have known. If you don't spark Pantoja immediately in that first round and he grabs your back, it's a wrap. And what happened the moment that he grabbed his back? It was a wrap. You know what I mean? It was Pantoja's submission. I'm pretty sure that was my play on it right there, just because it's butter, right? So again, that's some of the things that I was kind of struggling from that end. But let's give a little bit more insight, man, because this is what the Insight program is about. Just letting the people know, like in the day-to-day, you're breaking down film. I'll tell you guys, I'll give you a little bit of insight as to what the schedule looks like, right? So we record the episodes midweek on like a Thursday, right? Event happens on Saturday, and then you're back for a brand new event, having to have all of your information ready for that next Thursday. How hard is it to break down that film and to get an accurate assessment of the fighters that are coming, especially when you got back-to-back 6-fight main cards, and you're breaking down at least 12 fighters, at least, not on top of the sleepers and the other prop locks and other prelim picks. What do you think?
It takes a lot of time, Derek. A lot of time, man. The vast majority of my free time, and it's a good thing we do this because we love it, folks, because that's what we're providing is quality right there, because it does take a vast, I'd probably say 40% to 60% of just the free time you have that's not outside of whatever you're doing on the outside to make yourself a good living, you know. But that's one of the things, man, as well as not only going with just the most recent fights, but finding the tools in there for those fighters that are going to be working. You got to do a little bit of extra digging. You got to go be able to find certain little things that you're looking for, and it doesn't always happen in just the first, couple fights you're watching.
Yeah, no. I mean, you got to do some real digging, and sometimes you don't got fights to find, and now you have to do some real research, right? So it can be a grind, and I think that's the biggest part is the mental taxation that it has on you. But again, it all boils down to this one point: we do it because we love it, but we also do it because we love money. And if you guys like predicting good fights and predicting winners, just know this: between me and AJ, yeah, it's a rivalry. Yeah, we're trying to outcompete each other. But if you look at the Bloody Water podcast as a program and you compare it to a lot of the other outlets, there's a lot of my jiu-jitsu buddies that are going to be on the program that we're going to do for separate segments in 2025 because it's a year of reckoning and it's a year of vengeance. AJ wants vengeance, but guess what? I want vengeance too, because like I said, I was coming for 70% and I fell short. Folks, enough of the recap, enough of the ceremony. We're going to have all of that good stuff, plenty to come for plenty more years. But we have a couple of things that I wanted to reflect on again here, because this is an introspective program right here today. AJ, I'm going to bring this up on the screen, and I hope you have a couple of answers prepared, because we have three burning questions that we're going to be answering here today, folks, and this is going to lead us into a recap of 2024, but more importantly, what's to come in 2025. So let me go ahead, and I'm just going to read it off, actually. I'm not even going to bring it up on the screen, AJ, and then it's just going to go ahead, and we're going to answer it here. I'm going to have you go first. Question number 1, my friend. Which rivalry in 2024 felt the most personal, and did it live up to the hype? What's your take?
Man, and it's good, Derek, because I actually have a couple different ones for all of these questions right here. Yeah. But I think the most one, or the one that's most accurate, at least as far as personal bias, right, or that felt the most personal going into this one, Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad #2, right? With the outcome the first fight had, plus, admittedly, if you look from an outside, Leon not wanting the rematch, right? Leon trying to duck Bilal because of whatever the case was, and just the overall hate that Bilal has, right? Regardless, across the media, he's not a liked man. This one felt very personal coming from Bilal, right? And the training he did to get behind it, the steps he took to be able to put himself back in that position to be able to fight for the championship and get it done the way that he did, right? Being the bully, being the guy that's going to wrap you up and take you down. It seemed extremely personal coming from Bilal's side, right? There was a lot of stuff that he was digging up to be able to get to where he was, and it looked like a great show, a great performance. Unfortunately, I will say it didn't really live up to the hype that I was going for, right? I wanted a little bit more out of Leon. Yeah, sure, we saw him get the takedown a couple times, but what happened to boom headshot, right? What happened to the chaos that Leon was able to kind of endure and then give back? And because of that, I do think it fell a little bit short as far as a double-sided personal vendetta, if you will, but I do think a lot of that personal vendetta was going from the Bully B side.
Okay, I mean that's a fair take. It was one of the selections that I thought about. Let me double check on my end. that one didn't quite make my short list, so I'm interested. So I'm going to give you my main pick too, and then I'll rattle off to you the couple extra ones that I had, and you do the same as well. So my pick for the biggest rivalry of 2024, it's in a surprise twist. I actually think it's Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. I think that's the number one. And because there was so much buildup in advance, this was, I'm a real African, you're not a real African. You have the champion who held down the middleweight division for how long, who was really the new fixture. He was the new version of what combat sports was in mixed martial arts. Du Plessis came in, talked a bunch of proper shit though. You know what I mean? Like very nice, proper shit, but in a mean way, right? Got in Izzy's head, had him emotional, had the crying, had the whole entire nine, right? Got in the cage and actually finished him. That is the caveat that put the icing on the cake for me, is that he went in there and he submitted the man. It was a weird fight. It was one of those where I thought Adesanya was winning the fight. You know what I mean? Like he was trending all the right ways. But Du Plessis showed that if you can't handle the storm for all 25 minutes, man, it is a wrap. So I thought all of the smack talk, the rivalry between the nationalities, the race rivalry, even though you don't want to get into that, it did add an extra element. And it really just kind of divided people, man, to say, hey, this is going to be, and we're going to talk about this in a second. There's forks in the road, right? In life. It's kind of like, have you watched Loki on Disney? Do you know Loki, that show?
I've seen a couple episodes, brother.
So all you need to know is that they go off of that like multiple parallel universe type joint where it's like you do this one thing and this one thing happens and it opens up this new path to take. I think that Dricus du Plessis, having the reign that he had, beating Israel Adesanya, has opened up a new path for the UFC to grow in ways that it wouldn't have if Adesanya was just still dominating, beating all of the different challengers, right? Imagine if Anderson Silva had lost to Chael Sonnen, you know what I mean? Had lost to a lot of these just kind of like dudes that he had smashed that were legit legends. What would today look like? It'd probably look a lot different, which is kind of crazy. So that's my number one pick right there for that question. Rattle off though. What are those couple other ones that you were thinking?
I'm glad you brought that one up, Derek, because that one made the list as well. And then the next one, the one that I thought was number two for me, man, Alex Paeta versus Yuri Prochazka, number two, right? All the talk going back about ancestral, spirits or whatever, basically allowing Paeta to cheat going in there, and then for it to just end up basically the same round. It gets finished. One was a kick, the other one was a punch. So not really the outcome or the gravitas that I was expecting out of that fight. That's why I didn't make my number one pick. But because of all of the back and forth in the presser and the outside perspective of Yuri Prochazka, it did make it feel like a grudge match to me.
Interesting. What else do you have on your list? How many did you have?
Just those three, brother.
Those three?
Those three that made the short list. Uh-huh.
That's right. All right. My other one, so I have Pereira on here twice, actually. So my number two pick was actually Alex Paeta versus Jamal Hill. Believe it or not, brother, that made my number two for most personal, just heated rivalry of like, I really thought the way that Jamal Hill approached it, if he could have made that a more competitive fight or even won, that we'd be talking about. That'd be a big deal, bro, because he gave Pereira no respect whatsoever. He went in there, Pereira shot the bow, Jamal Hill caught it, snapped it in the cage, bro. Like, character, right? They went in there, and it was a little ticky-tack, right? Nothing major had happened. Pereira showed him more respect than he shows a lot of his opponents, but as soon as he closed the distance, it was over. So my answer for that one, because I don't think I did answer the first one. The Du Plessis Adesanya, did it live up to the hype? Yes. The second one, though, no, I don't think Hill Paeta did. I also had Alex Paeta, Yuri Prochazka, number two as well. I thought that one lived up to the hype too, just because of the finish right there. And then I threw in one final one, Strickland du Plessis, just because that was a lot of emotional shit talk right there. No, did not live up to the hype because close split decision, but Strickland fight, you know how it goes. All right, man. Well, that was question number one. On to question number two. What is your prediction, AJ, for the craziest storyline that we're going to see in 2025? I'm curious what that number one pick is. Number
one pick, Derek. I think I'm going to have to go. I've been battling this one all day. Which one actually I think is the most likely to happen? And I'm sticking with Paeta. I'm sticking with my gut on this one. Alex Paeta is going to become the first ever lineal 3-division champ right here. Uncle Chael, if you're paying attention, folks, Uncle Chael called for it back in 2023, but with the storyline, with how it's all unfolding, this can actually happen going down in 2025 as long as Alex Paeta moves up to heavyweight. And with how everything's unfolding, I see that as a clear path that he's going to be taken, if not middle of the year, closer to the end.
If Tom Aspinall is the champion, that's not going to happen, sir. So I'm going to debunk that one right now. But I like where your head's at because I have some pretty lofty ones too. So if that's the number one pick, interesting. My number one pick, so I have a lofty one and then I have a realistic one. My lofty one, AJ, there's been some rumblings. John Jones, Francis Ngannou, whether it's in the UFC or the PFL, fight in 2025 for the mega fight, for the biggest fight to take place in combat sports history. Right now, they're trying to say Aspinall versus Ngannou is the biggest fight, but I don't think that's going to be. Ngannou Jones, as always, has the makings for the biggest fight. What do you think about that one?
I almost wrote this one down, Derek. I almost wrote it down, but something tells me we're not seeing it, right? And I'm with you for lofty goals, lofty ambitions. I'm here for it. I would love to see Bones Jones versus the killer that Ngannou is. But something tells me that either whether it's Uncle Dana or whether it's John Jones pulling out, not wanting to do it, I don't think this fight's going to happen, unfortunately.
Well, I'm still banging for it, folks. Let's go. I think we got something on deck. All right, AJ, I got one more, but I want to know, did you have any other contenders there, or was this just your one?
No, I got another one right here, Derek. I'm thinking all champions, right, of men's flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight. They're all going to be changed up. All of them, or the new champions that are going to be taking the place, are going to be quote-unquote unknown fighters, right? And what I mean by that is unknown to the casuals, right? New people that have just popped up within the last year and a half, maybe some things that only us degenerates actually see going on. I think that's going to be the new fighters or new champions, because all the ones currently are going to bump up a weight class respectively.
I got one more. This one's realistic. I don't think people are gonna like this one. I don't like it. When I brought it up, I was like, I don't like this one, but I think it's true. My realistic but lofty prediction: I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is not a champion at 170 pounds in 2025. That's gonna be my prediction right here, and it's not because of what I saw against Ian Gary. It's because of how deep that division is right now, how many players there are, the ability for Alex Paeta to potentially come back down and to stall the division a little bit. But more importantly, I think people are writing off Bilal a little bit more than they should. And I think that if Shavkat and Bilal fought right now, I think Bilal would win. Based on what I saw against Ian Gary, I think he would win, just based on his grappling ability. And if Ian Gary was able to have Shavkat in some of those compromised positions take his back, I feel like Bilal is going to do that all day long. That's my prediction. What do you think? Am I crazy? Am I crazy, man? Or are we going to look back on this and I'm just going to be taking victory laps?
No, Derek, I don't think you're crazy for this one. And I can see the mindset. I can see the trajectory of what you're thinking, especially because if Shavkat isn't able to really dominate people going forward, a lot of the top 10, a lot of the top 5 that are in there are going to be able to have a better performance than Ian Gary did going forward. Bilal being one of the top ones that comes to mind. I mean, if he's able to run the championship, keep things going till Shavkat gets there, how much more polished is Bully B gonna be going in, right? Like, if Shavkat isn't able to match that same level of polish and growth in his own game, I do think he's gonna struggle in a lot of those positions.
Yeah, dude. There's other players too. Sean Brady might come up the ranks and surprise some people, man. I know he hasn't had like the best run thus far, but ever since that loss that he had to Bully B, Bilal Muhammad, he's been a killer. So if your only loss was to the champion, that's all I'm saying, right? So interesting take. Did you have anything else, AJ, or was that it?
Nah, that was it. Just the two on those ones, brother.
All right, one final one, my friend. And this is back to kind of that multiverse type stuff I was talking about. What is one fight in 2024 that you believe personally completely flipped its division?
And now I got another 2 on this one, Derek, and I think I'm going, again, battling back and forth. These are great questions because I've been battling them all day thinking about exactly how they get going. But there's a reason I didn't pick Dricus versus Izzy, the submission on Izzy for the one before, because I think this is the one, Derek. When the only people to be able to finish Adesanya, especially in his division, are straight killers, right? Absolute killers. Dricus was previously overlooked, not taken seriously, but after that domination that he had, I guess the dominating finish, right? Because I agree with you, Izzy was looking good until he wasn't, till he starts running back and kind of turning tail and trying to run away, and then he get clipped and then he gets submitted. Like, it's just not a good look for you, and completely flipped the narrative of who Dricus du Plessis is. And like you said, really opened up a whole new lane for him, and I think it flipped that division entirely, because now everybody's looking like Dricus was and now is the boogeyman of that division.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad one. Like I said, I think it opened up some doors for the UFC. And I have one too, man. It's going to seem like it's not. It's going to seem lazy. And I promise, folks, it's not, because I was dwelling over this one. But mine's the easy one, man. I think it's Ilia Topuria knocks out Volkanovski And what I wanted to make the original was going to be Makhachev knocking out Volkanovski, but that didn't happen this year. Because I think that opened up the door, right, for people to say early potential stoppage against Volk when Topuria did it, and then Topuria goes on to knock out Max Holloway. And now we're seeing a guy right here who arguably is one, first off, who knows if Volk and if Holloway, obviously Holloway said he's going up to 155, but is Volk going to be in the picture at 145 anymore? What if he tries to go up to 155 and test his luck there, right? So I think that Topuria said, all right, stranglehold on 145, no more, because already rumor circulating. He's like, I'm trying to get out this game early. I'm going to vacate my belt. I'm going to go up to 155. I'm going to be a multi-champ X, Y, and Z. So I think the UFC, without Ilia Topuria knocking out Alexander Volkanovski, would be a much different picture. It's amazing and it's beautiful to have long reigning champions, like it is, right? But at the same time, we talk about the opportunity cost. UFC takes some time and money to develop people into contenders and into stars. But if your dominant champion beats all of the contenders and all the stars, then you turn into Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, right? We thought Alexa Grasso was the one, right? And then Shevchenko got her belt back, and it's like, well, that's the bullet. You know what I mean? Come on. So I think that that's the fight. Did it feel lazy, AJ, or do you see the logic that I'm trying to bring here?
I see the logic, Derek, because my other answer is extremely close to what you were putting down, Derek. I had Ilia Topuria knockout over Blessed Express, all for the same reasons you had, right? Like the knockout on Volkanovski absolutely changed the game, right? Flipped it around. But I think to add on to that, everything you were saying, the knockout on Max only solidified it even more, right? Now Ilia is the dog. He is the guy that everybody's looking up to, completely changed the narrative for him. This is what Ilia Topuria's year has been, and man, did he make the most of it.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. And folks, that is how we make the most of this program here. This is our concluding program for the head-to-head championship, but we are not done. 2025 is going to host a lot of big things, more gold in future, especially quadruple D. I'm already throwing it into the prophecy, man. Oh, look at that. He said, no, not on my watch. But hey, folks, listen, we appreciate you. This program does not happen if you guys weren't tuning in. We are a legitimate mafia right here, folks. Over 3,300 subscribers in total. You guys are the best. Couldn't do it without you. AJ, as always, because you're our arbiter of truth when it comes down to all things betting in MMA, get us out of here, brother.
Folks, like Derek said, we wouldn't be a mafia without you, and it's the money-making mafia here. We're going to be back again in 2025, folks. I'm telling you, we're flipping the script. We were just talking about stuff that flipped the division. Well, we're flipping the betting game on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you get your entertainment, folks. We're the ones that make you the most money. We're the ones that hold ourselves accountable, and you know we're going to be back in 2025 doing it even better next year.